Lights.
Camera.
Watch.
Want you to stay.
Past lives. So this is the directorial debut of Celine Song. It is mostly based on a story that's actually happened to her.
I feel that.
And it stars Greta Lee, Yoteo, and John Magaro. I think that's how you say his last name. This movie, I loved it so much. What do you think?
I loved it. I can't wait to watch it. I want to watch it at home, like again.
Okay, I was
like
you just watched it.
I did, but I just want to watch it again. And it was just one of those movies that hits you in the heart so good. I get like flashbacks. Oh, you've ever seen Her?
I actually haven't seen Her.
Okay. So it's just like those relationship movies of like the what if, are they going to be together? I'm a sucker for love, people falling in love movies and like lost love and the potential of like a new
so
love.
this is right up your alley.
You have no idea. Like I'll save some more comments for later, but like I love this movie.
This movie is just like the perfect example of like how attention to detail and just an incredible script can really get you all you need. Because like it's so soft and quiet, yet it's so powerful and it's so striking when it's not really doing too much. Like at the end of the day, it's just groups of people having conversations.
Correct.
And like it's essentially Greta Lee, who immigrates from Korea, has a childhood best friend / sweetheart that she leaves behind, and she immigrates twice, from Korea to Canada and then from Canada to New York. And in that time, she meets her husband, who is a white guy who's also a writer. That's also what she does. And they fall in love on a writing retreat. And when Hae Song, who is her childhood sweetheart she leaves behind, comes back into his life, it just brings up all of these questions about not necessarily like, did I pick the right man, but more of like, did I choose the right life for myself? And I just think that that's so incredible, because this movie could have gone so many ways, where it could have been a classic will they, won't they, love triangle, getting back at each other, evilness, when it's really not doing any of those things. In fact, all of these characters are like incredibly mature and understand themselves and see what they want and are understanding about other possibilities and what they've left behind. And the real question is like, was the choice I made in my life like the right one? Not necessarily did I end up with the right man, but it's presented to her two love interests. And I just think it's so incredible.
I agree. I view that, I mean, you said it, you put it in perfectly, but I don't also view it as the girl's choice. I also view like as the boyfriend's choice, not the boyfriend, the childhood love's choice. Yeah. Where he said like, yo, come visit me or come here. You had an opportunity to leave everything behind. Because there was, to me, it's a unique situation where involves layers of assimilation and layers of like trying to grab on to maintain your culture, your heritage, your lifestyle, the life that it could be. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think the love interest, the past love interest, girl probably wasn't even Korean, could have been Chinese or something like that. Because I know he had to go to China for schooling.
Oh, Hae Song's girlfriend?
Yeah,
she's Chinese.
So that itself is also like a question. It's like you left to go somewhere else to learn the language, and then you get a girlfriend that is not. So you essentially like didn't go all the way like the girl did.
They're making the same choice, because when he comes to see her, so essentially it's broken up into 3 parts, right? So the middle part, they're very much having their little love story, but it's completely told through Skype or Zoom or however you want to say it.
It's really sweet. Like every time they had their conversations and the silences, the awkward, like oh my God.
It's so precious. And like for a movie where they're literally just sitting at their computer screen talking to each other, it's incredibly engaging. Like I didn't find it to be boring, which I feel like is really like a testament to Celine Song, because that's incredible. But they have the moments where like she's like, oh, like when can you come see me, or when can you come see you, and it's like clearly not going to happen. But when he eventually comes to see her 12 years later, he says that he's not broken up with his
girlfriend,
they're just like separated. Like he's doing the
we're on a break,
make the right decision kind of journey for himself, which she's already like had moved past.
But I feel like she has moments that she was like, should I do this? Should I just like, God, like this person knows a part of me or understands a part of me that this person will never understand. For example, like Arthur would always say, like Arthur says, like, you talk in Korean.
Oh my God, I love that scene.
In your sleep. And I tell people, and I try to explain that to people too, is like being like native in another language. There's like a world that I cannot connect with certain people if they don't have that verbiage or that story or this fairy tales or their things. I just can't connect with you, because for me, it's like we're a generation of people that are in the country of the United States that, whether we like it or not, if we have kids or we don't have kids, they're more likely just going to be fully assimilated. And whatever our parents were able to scrap on with spit and glue to maintain any culture we had, it's just like they can just wake up one day and be like, yo, I just speak English. I don't want none of that. I'm cool.
And Haesung really does represent like the life she left behind and the person she was in Korea. Because like she says one time, like after she first meets him, like, oh, he's so Korean. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like he's so Korean. Like when I'm with him, I feel less Korean and also more Korean, and it doesn't make sense because like it's really like a representation of like who she used to be and like what she gave up by immigrating and choosing the life that she wanted to now, even though she's happy in the life that she's chosen to be in now.
Yeah, I think there's it's not, what's the word? Is it a paradox, or sort of like you're torn? You want to have it all. You know, you want it to have your cake and eat it too. Yeah. But you know, you have to, like, I guess what it says in the, you have to give up something, you gain something, you know? Yeah. You'll get this new life if you give up your old life, where it's sort of like, it's melancholy, it's like heartbreak, where it's like you're allowing your Koreanness to die, you know? Yeah. And like your Korean American to live, and then if you have kids, then it's just American to exist, you know? I just found it like very, very relatable.
She's basically like understanding that she could be with either one of these men and be happy in that decision with that man, but she would be picking two very completely different lives for herself.
But she already chose a life. Yes. She already chose a life. And I think in some ways, both of them were kind of hesitant. And I don't want to say cowards, but like, why not take your foot forward, whether it's the guy or the girl? You know what I mean? They had an opportunity, like, when the guy was always like obsessed with her. I mean, she's like, I looked for you for like 12 years and found you.
And she didn't even remember his name.
Yes. Yeah. And that's very common for me being a guy. I still have the high school sweethearts that I had a crush on. I always feel like Sev that's like 14 or 15 is always still there and in love with so-and-so. And this person has been holding on to that emotion for so long. It's just sort of in some ways like, I don't want to call him a coward, because I'm that person too. Like, I didn't reach out or try to find that person to try to see if there's any connection whatsoever. But I felt like they were talking to each other for so long. Like, dude, all you have to do is go to New York.
Is they really had that opportunity in the middle 12-year section where they're just talking to each other. They could have easily taken that chance and been with each other. She could have either gone back to Korea, or more likely he would have accepted that he would have to move to New York, because she had made so many strides in her life to be in this position to be in New York. And if that he really wanted to be with Nora, he could have made that jump then, because they clearly had that rekindled connection and they were all together. And that's what's so interesting about this movie, is it's really like forcing the characters to sit in the decisions they've made and reflect upon like their choice and what led them to this choice and what could have been, but what actually is. And I think it's so incredible.
Yeah. I just, a thought popped into my head, like Haesung, if that's how you correctly pronounce his name. It was so sweet that I thought this guy flew in for a week to New York. And I just thought to myself, like, he knows nobody there. He just came for this girl. Yeah. And he's just waiting for this girl to say, come have lunch with me or come do this. And he's just probably hanging in his hotel room the entire time, just like being stuck in some type of weird limbo of like love and like letting someone go. What do I do? As a guy, I 100% relate to that. Like, just when I saw him just like hanging in his hotel room, I'm like, dude, I know that heartbreak, you know? And I just kind of felt like I felt for the guy, you know what I mean? Because I think, like, no matter what, that's the love of his life.
Yeah.
And no matter who comes, then he might have a life partner, but that's the love. He's always going to have this innocent, like, years of love. And that, I think some people don't realize how fragile and how precious that is, because you can't travel back in time and have a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And I know people that I work with, or God knows who else, that have had their sweethearts for 20, 30, 40 years, and it's like a miracle. But then you also have other people that, like, can't wait to get away from that person or their roommates. But I just felt like this guy's like, man, if I had a little bit more courage, you know?
The actor who plays him is pulling off such a, like, despair in everything he does, even when he's not doing anything, just sad. Like, you can just tell this is a sad guy. Like, there's a scene earlier on in the film where he goes drinking with his buddies and he wakes up and he says literally nothing. He just, like, crawls out of bed and goes to silently eat with his family and says, like, thank you for this meal. And then his mom's like, why are you in such a good mood? And it was, like, the first time he had rekindled with Nora, but he hadn't done anything particularly, like, joyous.
Yeah.
And so you could just tell, like, he's just not a happy guy, and this really, like, sparked something inside of him. But, like, the thing is, he's not a bad guy. Neither of them. There's no real villain in this movie, which I just think is incredible, because both of these men are, like, incredibly sweet and understanding and caring, and it's, like, really, like,
mature as people.
They're so mature about it. Like, I want to talk about Arthur a little bit.
But that kind of sucks too, right? When you're so mature, where it's sort of like, you know what? Be a fucking bad guy. Be greedy. Grab the girl, steal her, you know what I mean? Get that life that you want, you know what I mean? Because there's no coming back.
But he knows, like, at this point when he's come to visit her, like, it says that at this point, like, she's been married for 7 years. Yeah. And he had that opportunity to go run to New York and find her, and he chose not to. Yeah,
like, in some ways, he's like, I would be destroying this girl's life if somehow, like, if she, like, slips up, you know what I mean, for just a split moment.
But he had to go see her and know for sure before he could move on into life. He wanted to know that she was happy, and that, like, if he went there and saw her life and she wasn't happy, being like, hey, the opportunity to be with me is still existing. But, like, there's a great scene later where he says, like, I didn't know liking your husband was gonna make me this upset or something like that, and it's like,
he's actually a good person, you know, like, someone that genuinely loves you. And you were gonna say, like, Arthur, like, what were your thoughts on Arthur?
Like, if, like, in Arthur's position, like, it would be so easy for him to just say, like, no, you cannot see this man, like, he's so clearly here for you. And there's that scene where, like, she goes to see him for the first time in New York and comes home and, like, sits on the couch with him, and he's just playing video games like it's any other night, and he just is like, oh, you're right, like, you were totally right, like, he's definitely here to see me. And, like, there's no anger or rage. He just genuinely asks, like, oh, well, do you find him attractive? Like, is this something I should be concerned about? Because, like, I will never understand that part of you, that Korean part. And so, like, he's, like, so, like, ridiculously open to the idea of her leaving him, because I think both of the guys just think that she's too good for them in some way. Like, they both have a moment where they're like, oh, you're, like, he says at one point, you make my world so much bigger, and I'm not sure if I do the same for you. And then Hae Song says to his girlfriend, who he's been with a long time, like, she deserves better than me, like, I'm too ordinary for her.
Yeah, that to me is also, what do you know? Like, so I think there's a lot of insecurity in certain cultures, and just from me watching and understanding, even in our own community, and, like, I'm sure in Asian communities as well too, is there's such a constant, like, apex male, you have to be successful, money, you know, you can enough, you know what I mean? That Century City, you know, like a Century City man in Korea. And, you know, sometimes being this regular person is all this person needs to be. And, you know, maybe they're supposed to be the star, you know? Why do you always have to, like, be the king and stuff like that? Why can't the queen rule, you know?
Yeah.
So to me, it was just, I saw Arthur as just, like, this everyday guy that's just, like, you know, he's a regular guy, just like Hae Sung. And in his world, he's playing Xbox, you know what I mean? Like, chilling in his downtime. When I'm pretty sure, and Hae Sung back home is, like, hanging out with his friends and drinking and eating soup or whatever it is. Like, who knows what he's doing? Like,
They're got both this just regular guys.
Yes. And the girl is also a regular girl too.
Yeah.
She is no Pulitzer Prize winner. She's no like Nobel Peace Prize. She's no like huge playwright person. She had just big dreams and goals. And basically the world, she came to the realization, it's like, look, all I can really do is like a play. You know what I mean? There's so much competition. Whereas she's also ordinary.
I love the recurring question of what's the big prize you're going after these days. I think that's awesome. And then when he asks her in New York and she's like, oh, I haven't thought about that in a long time. And he's like, oh, like that's who I know of you as, like the one always reaching for the next big thing.
It does. Sometimes we meet those people, like the popular high school quarterback. He's like, oh, you're going to play in the NFL or go to this big college, when they basically end up working at the hardware store in the local city and is like the general manager, you know, when you run into them. And I think that's a thing to a lot of people, like stay in their hometowns and they don't grow out of their bubbles. But sometimes when people even leave their hometowns, like travel across the world, you know, they might get a regular job for a little bit, but maybe they might explode when they're like 55 years old because they did this play and it finally got the right attention. And I kind of feel like that's the lead character, the girl's character. Like she had like all these big goals, but at the end, like she settles for a good normal life with a healthy relationship with,
and she's still working in plays, like she's
not like far away from what she's doing. But again, we have to remember, when you win those Nobel prizes and like, you know, literature Pulitzer Prize, they go to like apex people that are like the top of the food chain. And I guess his song was like saying like, I'm just an ordinary guy. Well, this girl is an ordinary girl. And if she probably stayed in Korea, she would just be the same person she is in Korea as well too. But yeah, like I just felt you feel for all of them. You wish in some unique world that they can have like a tripod relationship.
Yes, because that's the thing, is like none of them are like really having any conflict with each other, but they're all having their own internal conflict about like the choices they've made in their life. And it's just like the three of them all individually are having their own reflections about like what I chose to do that led me on this current path that I'm at. And it's really like, it's just really beautiful.
Yeah, we can only like, after every like heartbreak or breakup or anything you can say to that, I think to myself now that there's alternate universes where in an alternate universe, Haesung and the girl stay together in Korea. Or another alternate universe that he wins her over. There's also an alternate universe where they never meet each other. There's an alternate universe where Arthur meets some other girl that's in that area and they fall in love. And to me, it's like you just kind of have to bury your past life. You know, you can't look back on it so much. You really, like, you know, when she was saying like, oh, I forgot about those goals or those ideas, because I really had to put those to bed, because it doesn't allow you to move forward. And I think that's what I try to tell people a lot is like, you know, look back on it fondly, romantically, like all cherished memories. But sometimes they're painful, but you just have to really just move forward, because look what's in front of you. You can't time travel. You have this amazing person in front of you. Just like move forward.
And that's like really the core of the whole movie. It's because it's literally, I mean, it's literally called Past Lives. But she says like the little girl you know in Korea, like did love you and did exist, but that person is not sitting in front of you today. Like that is a different person, and like she's now in a different country, a different culture. Oh my God,
that hits so hard to me. Like, oh my God, like that person did exist. That person did love you, but they're not here anymore. They're just like some moment in time. It's like, oh my God. Jeez.
We're starting to get kind of towards the end of like what's happening in the story, but I want like the way that this film opens.
Yes, it's great.
Is so good, because it starts, the main climax of this movie and where they're having most of this conversation about what we've been discussing takes place in the bar. And the movie opens with a couple people across the bar being like, what are these people's relationships to each other?
Yes.
And they're chatting about like, who do you think is together? How do you think they got here? Why are they like only talking to some people and stuff? And then, so when that scene actually comes in towards the end of the movie, where Haesung comes to the apartment and goes to dinner with both Arthur and Nora. Did you think Arthur should have gone to the bar?
I think Arthur, I mean, there was, you know, it was a really weird moment, because he was just like being ignored in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, we have to have our breakup conversation now, Arthur. Like, it has to happen in Korean. But also, it is also very brave of him to be like, look, this is the love of my life. I ain't gonna like go down without a fight. I'm gonna be right here. Like, I'm not like, you try something, like, I'm gonna be like, look, I love you. Who is it gonna be? And you don't want to like question. It's like, oh, did they hook up? Just, you know what I mean? Like had like
But I don't think that would have been the case. I genuinely think Arthur would have been like, if you leave me for Hae Sung, like, because there's the conversation in bed where the two of them, like, Arthur and Nora are talking, and he says like, oh, like, your love story is just so perfect and ours is so boring. Like, in the movie version, I would be the evil white guy standing in the way. Like, you can tell that, like, he knows that, like, what they have is special. And if he wanted, like, obviously Nora loves Arthur and, like, wants to be with Arthur. But, like, the idea of Nora leaving him for Hae Sung, like, does make sense to him.
Yeah, it does. But also, in many ways, like, you don't know if that'll be a happy ending for that. Because this girl, when she came to America, had a goal. And regardless of how that goal got watered down, she's living the life that she sought out to possibly have.
Yeah.
Whereas he maybe has not been doing that. You know what I mean? There comes a point that people have to be true to themselves. And if you are not living or at least attempting to reach the peaks that you are, you can't just like wait for somebody to come rescue you or some old love life to like turn your life around and be like, oh yeah, it was so great living that ordinary life because you see she came back to me, you know? Mm-hmm. This girl probably lives with no regrets. The hard part is she never just possibly ended that relationship. There was never a proper breakup. There was never like, yo, we're not together. Because even though she traveled back to Korea, she wanted to see him.
Yeah.
And he refused. And which I thought was like a dick.
He knew that she was coming with her husband.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, you could have saved yourself like 7 years or whatever years of like torture by seeing her and realizing like, look, she's happy. Or it was an opportunity for her to be like, look, you have a chance. You don't have kids. Come back home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she didn't, and he didn't. And guess what? Because you didn't want it, you lose. So move forward is how I view it.
Honestly, and it's to the fact that it's all going down just with poor Arthur sitting next to them. Yeah. And not understanding their conversation, and they're literally lying out exactly that, like, this didn't work out for us, and Arthur just having that language barrier on the side of like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Picking up every other word.
Yes, and he knows like the Inyan phrase, and they mention it a whole bunch of times. Yes. And so like, and that's what she used to pick him up originally. So the fact that they're talking about fate and destiny and everything, and he can kind of understand because he learns Korean. So he can kind of understand what she says when she's dreaming.
And that's so sweet.
So like, he's just such a sweet guy.
No, but the fact that both of them, one spoke broken English, one spoke like broken Korean. And that just tells you like, look, these two are like putting in some type of...
So much effort.
Yes. It's just like, I felt like in some ways the two dudes can like marry each other and be happy together.
Yeah, they have that moment. Like, she goes to the bathroom and he, in like broken English, says like, I'm sorry, we speak separate. We will speak together. And Arthur's like, no, like, honestly, it's fine. Like, I know you guys need to have this time. And then he says like, us two, we are also Inyan. Like, we are all... And they're like, yes, that's true. And they have their own little bonding moment there, which is so sweet.
8,000 years of, like, running into each other.
Yeah.
And they have 8,000
Oh, my God. When they first meet each other in the apartment, where they're just, like, having the awkward, like, stare-off of the tension, like, it's so good. It's so good.
The actors were so well performed in this movie.
Oh, my God.
This is the part where I say, like, you know, like a movie like this, you know, it gets gigantically overshadowed by Barbie and Oppenheimer and like all the other like...
Well, this came out earlier in the year, actually.
It did. But I just kind of felt like it didn't get its just credit, where there's like movies like Blue Beetle has been like how many months of marketing, or Mission Impossible Death Reckoning. I'm like, couldn't this poor movie get like some airtime?
No, honestly, like, I'm so glad we're talking about it right now, because when I saw this movie literally months ago,
you said it.
I was telling everybody
Best
I know,
movie.
like, please someone talk to me about Past Lives. Like, did anybody see Past Lives? And not a single person like went out and sought out this movie. And I genuinely think that this movie is not gonna leave like the zeitgeist, because I think it's coming back for award season. I think it will definitely be nominated for Best Picture.
So.
I'm hoping Greta Lee will be nominated for Best
Director.
No, Best Lead Actress.
Oh, Best Lead.
She plays Nora.
Oh, sorry.
She honestly, all of these actors, like, I know have been working in a lot of things. Like, the guy who plays Hae-sung is, like, he's worked a lot in, like, Korean films. And Greta Lee has done a lot of comedic roles. I think this is her first serious role.
She's so
and,
perfect.
oh, my God. Like, I'm speechless talking about this woman's performance. Like, it is so good. And the other guy, the guy who plays Arthur, he's, like, been in a lot of stuff, too. I saw him early. Did you see Showing Up?
No.
Okay, well, I saw Showing Up this year, in, which is like a Kelly Reichardt film about like Michelle Williams, and she's an artist, and he plays like her like not so all there brother, and like he's really good in it too. Totally different performance by him, but that's the first thing I'd ever seen him in. But like he's also like phenomenal.
Isn't that the movie where like it's also a love story as well too, where like the love interest was like a AC repair guy and she turned into like some world famous chef, or is that another movie?
That's a different movie.
Okay.
This is about her and Michelle Williams' character and, oh my God, I'm blanking on the other woman's name, but they're both just like, they work at the same like art company, and they both have like, they're both working independently on shows, and it's just like their perspective on life is both very, very different, and they kind of have like an antagonizing battle between each other, even though it's like between themselves. It's really good. You should check it out. But
I have to tell you, when you told me this a long time ago, you're like, the best movie of the year. This is the best movie of the year.
This is literally like the best thing I've seen this year. This movie is so good.
And it's very far. Like, I understand, like, you might be a giant, Barbie director and stuff like that, but I feel like this movie, when you take how it was made and, like, it doesn't have all of this, like, everything going behind it, but just the story itself, I think it's the best story.
The story is
And
incredible.
And it's not like some, like, groundbreaking story. It's just, like,
it's a human story.
Yes.
It's like, it's incredibly relatable.
Yes.
And like anybody who can see it, whether it's like the immigrant story part of it, or whether it's just like the choices you've made or the people you're with, like there's so much to relate to. But also, like you just mentioned, like the details in this movie. There's a couple things I want to shout out, because again,
Please.
this is her first. Celine Song, who's the director, she should be nominated for best screenplay too. This is an incredible script. Like there's a couple moments where, like, early on in the film, when the two kids finally say goodbye and they walk across different paths, and like she's going up a staircase and he's walking down just like I don't know if it's like a dirt hill or something, but the opposite, like that one frame where they say goodbye to each other and they're going physically down different paths. Like when I saw that the first time, I was like, that is just such a beautiful metaphor through film that I've ever seen. And then there's like little things like Arthur is also a writer, like that's their relation. His book that he's selling in one of the scenes is called Boner. I love that. Greta Lee's character Nora, on her apartment, it just says keys, wallet, phone, like a little reminder, like that's just like shows a little something about her character.
She's forgetful.
I love any movie that just does the film thing that you do with mirrors, and you have the little scenes where you walk by or you show something in some reflection. I love it. This has a lot of that. And then my most favorite filmmaking moment is towards the ending. So I do want to talk about the ending a little bit, but they have their dinner. They go back into the apartment. She drops off Arthur and is like, I'm going to walk Hae-sung to the Uber.
Oh my God.
Sev, this is one of the best film endings I've seen in so long, because at this moment, genuinely, like, she's established that she's not gonna leave her husband for Hae-sung, but when this moment starts, I had no idea where it was gonna go from here. And they walk from right to left, from her apartment to the Uber, and like basically back in time, like going back with him to their old world, and they are standing there, and there is just so much tension, and they say absolutely nothing. And it could go from anything, from her kissing him in that moment, from her like blowing up in his face for coming, it could have just ended on them not saying anything, and it's like up to the audience's perspective. But it ends so beautifully by when the taxi pulls up and he gives the most beautiful speech of like, did you ever consider that this is just one of our past lives and what we are to each other in the next? And then he just drops the see you then. And my heart broke. Both times I cried.
Yes.
When I saw this earlier this week, like during this speech, there was a woman in my row who was audibly bawling.
Yes.
And it is heartbreaking. And then she walks from basically the past, from left to right, back into her present, and just breaks down and sobs.
Yeah.
And I just think the Celine Song landed the plane.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. Did you like the ending? Did you hope that she ended up with him, or?
Look, it didn't matter who she ended up the way. It's just that, like, it's just so real. They gave a real thing, and this guy was also like, just those words she said to her. It was sort of like, God, like, how brave are these two people? You know, they're just generally like, she didn't have to walk him all the way, like, and like he also had some level of like, yo, she's happy, she's with a good man. Like, I don't know if, like, why would I torpedo this? You know, it's sort of like when you love someone, you have to let them go and all those things and stuff like that. They're not coming back, but it's like, at least, you know, you have like some peace of mind that if you did love this person, they're with a good person. But I would also think to myself, like, geez, man, I let her go, but like, there's no way to get her back. And if I do anything, it's just like, how do I know she's gonna be this happy? And then I'm gonna turn into the person that ruined everything for her. And I just sometimes think that life has to be so like poetic like that. Like, there are no happy endings. There are just sometimes endings that we live with. And I think that's what happened in this situation.
And it just ties so beautifully back to that beginning quote of the mom, when she just says, when you leave something behind, you gain something too, because they both finally said goodbye to that past life, their love, their moment together, and are finally able to like move on in the present. And they're both like he's driving away in the taxi having his own revelation, and she's like sobbing about like finally saying goodbye to her childhood. Yeah. And it's so beautiful.
I just think they were just so, I hate the word they use, mature, so much, but it's
they
like,
are like, how they're just about the whole situation.
Like, in this day and age, they're like, fuck it, let's just rip each other's clothes off and just like make love somewhere. Or like, no, fuck this guy, let me run away. Like, screw this life, let me just be impulsive. But they were just like adults, and like, this is the life I created for myself. And this guy had to come and see for himself, like, this world, this girl is gone. She's gone. There's no way of like, that person does not exist. And when I speak Korean to her, it's sort of like, yo, I've kind of passed that Korean. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't.
She even has a new name now.
Yeah.
I love this movie so much, man. Anything else you want to add?
I honestly think it's the best movie of the year. It's far, in my opinion, leaps above every movie that I've watched.
Everything else I've seen this year.
It's so, you know, sometimes you need a simple movie, and like, you know, when they fly under the radar and you just watch it and you're like, wow, you were right, D. You're 100% right. It is the best movie of the year. And if anybody says like, oh, Barbie or Oppenheimer, I'm like, no, past lives. Just go watch that movie.
I genuinely think it's going to get some nominations, and it's going to highlight that people go see it. I'm hoping. I don't think it's going to be brushed over. I think enough people saw it because it was, I don't know what festival it came out of too, but it was like really, really, it might have been Sundance, but it was really praised coming out of it. And I just hope it gets that Best Picture nomination, and then everybody goes back and checks it out that missed it, because it's really, really worth it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people realize, geez, why did we ignore this movie for some reason? And like a lot of movies that people, when it comes out, gets ignored or brushed under the carpet, and because there's like the big, sexy AAA movies coming out with all the stars. And this is what I always say. It's like, if this was marketed maybe in a better time or a different situation, or maybe like the fall, like after Oppenheimer and stuff like that, maybe would have done way better. You know, but it was like in the beginning of the summer.
It came out like March or something.
Was it March or June?
Might have been May.
I think it was like right around the summer blockbusters. And you just can't compete with that stuff. And I don't think at that time they anticipated that there was going to be some type of strike happening and movies would continue coming out the way it was. But like, it's a movie like this. And did you also, one more thing that I say is like, the city also is like a character.
Oh, yeah.
Like New York, like there's so many moments of New York, and I'm not a New York fan. I've been to New York, not a big fan of it.
Oh, I hate New York, but I love movies that are set in New York. There's something about a movie being set in New York. It's like, give it to me. But whenever I go to New York in like real life, I'm like, I have to go home now.
Yeah, but very much New York plays a very big character in this, because in some ways, like, this is the person that takes away the girl.
Yeah.
You know, this is where the girl is in a relationship also with New York. This is where her life is. And Korea is like another character, which is like, yo, that's the past life as well too.
And it's so interesting. Like, they go to the Statue of Liberty, and then she has the realization that she's never been there with her husband. So it's also giving that, like, I'm even with this man, Hae Sung, like, I'm seeing different parts of my city that, like, I wouldn't have done. Like, it's all there in the script. Like, it's just all so thought out and beautiful, and like every detail is considered.
Yeah, but living in LA, how many times do you go to certain parts? Like, you don't go visit like any. You might, because maybe your work or maybe your friends are visiting.
Honestly, I got a lot of people who come to visit, so I go to the touristy stuff much more often than I'd like to.
But for us that have like really grew up here, we can give two shits about like whatever it is, you know.
Anytime I have to go to Hollywood Boulevard, like, I want to scream. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like anybody else does
guys?
too.
Why? No, I don't want to see some fat Iron Man trying to get photos for $5.
It's our Times Square. What can you do?
There you go, man. But D, for me, big thumbs up.
Dude, double thumbs up. I love this movie.